This is not just a story, it's an emotional roller coaster that explores love, guilt, and consequences. Don't miss it. Sophia Carter had always been the epitome of grace and composure. A strikingly beautiful woman in her early 40s, she carried herself with elegance, making her the envy of everyone in her social circle. After marrying David Carter, a widower with a teenage son named Ethan, she seemed to have the perfect life: a loving husband, a luxurious home, and a charming stepson. Yet beneath the surface of her polished existence, secrets simmered. Ethan was, unlike most teenagers, quiet, observant, and mature beyond his years. He had a natural charisma that drew people toward him, and Sophia wasn't immune to his charm. At first, their interactions were harmless, playful banter in the kitchen, shared jokes during family dinners, but over time, an unspoken tension began to brew. One rainy evening, when David was away on a business trip, Sophia and Ethan found themselves alone in the house. They watched a movie together in the dimly lit living room. As the storm raged outside, their laughter echoed through the room, but an undeniable undercurrent lingered. Ethan's hand brushed hers as he passed the popcorn, and Sophia felt a jolt she couldn't ignore. She quickly excused herself, blaming the heat of the moment on her imagination. Weeks passed, and Sophia found herself drawn to Ethan in ways she didn't understand or refused to admit. She began noticing the little things about him: the way his eyes sparkled when he laughed, the confidence in his stride. She started spending more time with him under the guise of bonding as a family. Ethan, perceptive as ever, began to sense her lingering glances and the subtle shift in her behavior. One afternoon, while David was out running errands, Ethan confronted Sophia in the kitchen. His tone was casual, but his eyes betrayed his curiosity. "You've been different around me lately," he said, leaning against the counter. Sophia froze, her heart pounding. She dismissed his observation with a forced laugh, but Ethan wasn't convinced. He stepped closer, his gaze intense. The tension between them was palpable, and for a fleeting moment, Sophia thought he might kiss her. Instead, he pulled away and left the room, leaving her breathless and confused. Sophia tried to avoid Ethan after that day, but it was impossible. The house felt too small, the walls closing in on her guilt. She knew what she felt was wrong, yet she couldn't stop herself. One evening, while David was asleep, she found herself in the living room, staring at the fireplace. Ethan entered quietly, his presence unnerving her. He sat beside her, the silence filled with unsaid words. "I can't stop thinking about you," Ethan whispered, his voice trembling. Sophia turned to him, her eyes wide with shock and fear. She opened her mouth to protest, but no words came out. Instead, she leaned in, and their lips met in a moment of forbidden passion. The room felt like it was spinning, the weight of their actions sinking in almost immediately. The affair began in secret, with stolen moments and hushed conversations. Sophia's guilt gnawed at her, but she couldn't bring herself to end it. Meanwhile, Ethan's behavior grew more reckless. He became possessive, often questioning her loyalty to him. The dynamic between them shifted, and what started as an impulsive mistake spiraled into a dangerous obsession. David, oblivious at first, began to notice changes in both Sophia and Ethan. Sophia grew distant, often lost in thought, while Ethan's once quiet demeanor turned erratic. One evening, while going through their shared laptop, David stumbled upon a series of messages that left him reeling. The words were vague but suggestive enough to raise suspicion. Determined to uncover the truth, he installed a surveillance camera in the living room, hoping to catch whatever was going on when he wasn't around. The revelation came sooner than expected. Late one night, David watched the footage and saw Sophia and Ethan in an intimate embrace. His world shattered in an instant. Rage consumed him, but he decided to play it cool, carefully planning his next move. Sophia, unaware of David's discovery, continued her secret meetings with Ethan. One night, David announced a surprise family vacation to their lake house, a secluded property miles away from the city. Sophia hesitated, but agreed, seeing it as an opportunity to fix her strained marriage. Ethan, however, seemed uneasy about the trip. At the lake house, the atmosphere was tense. David's cheerful facade masked his true intentions, and both Sophia and Ethan could feel the weight of his unspoken suspicions. Late one night, while everyone was asleep, David confronted Sophia. He cornered her in the kitchen, his voice low but menacing. "I know what you've been doing," he hissed. Sophia's heart sank as she realized he had uncovered her betrayal. Sophia Carter tried to suppress her growing attraction to Ethan, brushing it off as a temporary lapse in judgment. But her attempts at self-control faltered when she noticed the way he looked at her not as a stepson, but as a man captivated by her presence. It was the kind of attention she hadn't felt from David in years. At first, she dismissed the flickers of excitement as harmless, but the electricity between them was undeniable. One evening, while David worked late, Sophia lingered in the kitchen preparing dinner. Ethan walked in, fresh from a run, his shirt clinging to his chest and damp from sweat. He grabbed a glass of water and leaned against the counter, watching her intently. "You work too hard," he said, his voice warm and teasing. "David's lucky to have someone like you." Sophia smiled nervously, avoiding his gaze. "It's just dinner," she said lightly. But her pulse quickened when his hand brushed hers as he reached for a napkin. The touch was brief, but it ignited something within her that she couldn't ignore. Later that night, Sophia lay awake, her mind racing. The image of Ethan's piercing eyes and the casual brush of his hand replayed in her thoughts. She chastised herself, labeling it as nothing more than an overreaction. But the truth was, she craved his attention. And deep down, she knew he felt the same. Over the next few weeks, their interactions became more charged. Ethan found excuses to be around her helping with errands, lingering in the living room, offering to cook dinner with her. One evening, as they chopped vegetables side by side, their hands touched over the cutting board. They both froze, the air between them thick with tension. "Sophia," Ethan murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. She looked up, her breath hitching at the intensity in his eyes. "Ethan, this isn't right," she said, though her voice lacked conviction. "Maybe not," he replied, stepping closer. "But I can't stop thinking about you." Her resolve crumbled as he leaned in, his lips brushing hers tentatively. The kiss was soft at first, a tentative exploration, but it quickly deepened as they gave in to the magnetic pull between them. When they finally broke apart, Sophia's heart raced with a mixture of exhilaration and dread. From that night on, their affair began in earnest. Every moment they spent alone became an opportunity to explore their forbidden connection. They shared stolen kisses in the hallway, whispered confessions in the dark, and secret touches that sent shivers down their spines. One particularly rainy evening, when David was out of town, Sophia and Ethan found themselves curled up on the couch, watching a movie. The storm outside mirrored the turbulence of their emotions as Ethan gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "You're so beautiful," he said, his voice filled with admiration. Sophia blushed, her heart pounding. "You shouldn't say things like that," she replied, though the smile on her lips betrayed her words. Ethan leaned in, his hand resting on her cheek as he kissed her deeply. This time, there was no hesitation. No guilt, only the overwhelming need to be close to each other. The soft glow of the fireplace cast flickering shadows on the walls as their passion ignited, consuming them completely. They spent the night wrapped in each other's arms, whispering about their lives, their fears, and the impossibility of their situation. Sophia confessed how lonely she had felt in her marriage, how David's constant work trips and emotional distance had left a void in her life. Ethan listened intently, his fingers tracing circles on her skin. "You deserve to feel loved," he said softly. "Truly loved." Sophine's eyes filled with tears as she realized how much she had come to depend on Ethan's affection. But with that realization came a deep sense of guilt. She knew their relationship was wrong, yet she couldn't bring herself to end it. Their secret rendezvous continued, each encounter more daring than the last. They met in secluded spots around the house, careful to avoid David's suspicion. Once, during a family barbecue, Ethan slipped away under the pretense of grabbing more supplies. Sophia followed him into the garden shed, her heart racing. "What are you doing?" she whispered, glancing nervously over her shoulder. Ethan smirked, pulling her close. "I couldn't wait any longer," he admitted before kissing her passionately. Sophia melted into his embrace, the thrill of their forbidden love overshadowing the risk of getting caught. Their stolen moments became the highlight of her days, and she found herself looking forward to the times when they could be alone. But their affair wasn't without its challenges. Ethan's growing possessiveness began to strain their relationship. He hated seeing her with David, even if it was only for appearances. During one heated argument, he accused her of not being fully committed to him. "You still care about him, don't you?" Ethan said, his voice laced with jealousy. "Ethan, this isn't about David," Sophia replied, frustrated. "What we have is complicated enough without you questioning my feelings." Despite their disagreements, they couldn't stay apart. The magnetic pull between them was too strong, and each reconciliation was marked by even more intense passion. They began meeting outside the house, venturing to nearby parks and quiet cafes, where they could steal moments together, without fear of being discovered. One memorable afternoon, Ethan took Sophia to a secluded hiking trail. They walked hand in hand, the crisp autumn air filling their lungs. At the peak of the trail, with the sun setting behind them, Ethan pulled her close and kissed her deeply. "Don't care what anyone says," he declared. "I love you, Sophia. I'll do whatever it takes to be with you." Sophia's heart swelled at his words, but she couldn't shake the nagging fear of what would happen if their secret ever came to light. She knew their love was doomed, yet she couldn't imagine her life without him. As their affair continued, the weight of their deception began to take its toll. Sophia became increasingly paranoid, constantly checking over her shoulder and second-guessing every move. Meanwhile, Ethan's frustration grew as he struggled to keep their relationship hidden. One night, after a particularly close call with David, Sophia broke down in Ethan's arms. "I can't keep living like this," she sobbed. "I'm terrified of what will happen if he finds out." Ethan held her tightly, his heart aching at her pain. "We'll figure this out," he promised. "I won't let anything happen to you." Their love, as intoxicating as it was, became a double-edged sword, bringing them immense joy and unbearable pain. Each stolen moment felt more precious than the last, but the shadow of their betrayal loomed over them, threatening to destroy everything they had built. The climax of their romance came on a cold winter night. Sophia and Ethan found themselves alone once again, the house quiet except for the crackling of the fireplace. As they lay together on the couch, wrapped in each other's arms, Sophia whispered, "I wish we could stay like this forever." Ethan kissed her forehead, his voice filled with determination. "One day, we will." Little did they know, their time was running out. David's suspicions had grown, and the truth was about to unravel in a way neither of them could have anticipated.